If you've been tuning into all the news out of EVO, you know the news about Guilty Gear Strive 2.0. It's such an exciting moment, and I wanted to make a video on it so quick, so we're actually doing an off-the-cuff video on it, because I want to talk about not only what this could be, but also just get my excitement going, because I feel like we have such a unique opportunity to revisit the game, look at it from a totally new perspective, and actually start to wonder, can we start fitting in everything we could have wanted from this game? Now, granted, I'm a brand new player to Guilty Gear as a series. I don't have a lot of experience with the older games. So seeing what the older games did and what they could do for the future, I want to combine some of those elements, as well as just what the modern era of fighting games looks like compared to when Strive came out back in 2021. The landscape is just completely different. So I feel like we have this opportunity to start again. So let's go over some of those wish list points, because we're gonna have some fun in this video. Let's have some fun. If you've ever looked at older Guilty Gear titles, you'll notice how different and more dynamic the combos and the hits are. This is actually a multifaceted reason for this, because weights used to be a thing, the way that air combos used to work were totally different, and there's just a lot of like system and even character specific dynamics that created a lot of variety between characters, matchups, and just that's what made combos work really different, right? But I think you can see from Strive how they tried taking some of these ideas and revamping them, that I think in one instance it only worked partially, and I think could use not a full reversion, but a reassessment. And I think that's the launcher system. I think what they used to have before with aerial raves and stuff like that is that you used to have this move that would launch your opponent really, really high, and then you would basically do an aerial rave, would just do an air combo and just have really cool dynamic air combos. I think they wanted to do this with charged dust, right? Like where they were like, what if our big launcher actually caused a stage transition? I think that was probably like the conception of the idea of just going like, well, we're building these stage transitions into Strive. What if we did that, something dynamic with that, right? Like an aerial version of that, not just a wall break. And so I think that was the conception of it. I think in hindsight now that, you know, Strive has been out for so long, I don't think the charged dust concept ended up working out. I think it does have some merit to it. It's not that it's meritless, but I don't think it added as much as maybe it ended up taking away. Because I think what it ended up doing was, yes, we have the stage transitions, and that is a cool dynamic, and you can kind of create your own air combos that way. But I think the loss of air combos in general is what I would love the 2.0 version to bring back, where we can have a lot more air combos, and you have ways of doing those basically dust combos, but in just a standard match. So I'm almost like theorizing replacing the charged dust with just an actual launcher that everybody can use. And it would be still part of the dust button, because it would be kind of a universal launcher, but bringing back air combos in a significant way would, I think, add a lot to the game again. If you notice, this might be connected with something that they talked about in the upcoming patch, which is about reassessing Wild Assault. They were saying how a lot of characters were dependent on Wild Assault for their conversions. And Strive has always had like a conversion problem with characters that are always considered some of the best. It's because they can convert from their hits the best. And other characters that are not as strong, they can't convert as well. So I think by adding like a launcher that everybody can use and kind of do more air combo stuff, you're opening up the possibility of helping characters that have conversion needs, or even just expand the conversions that they can get a lot better. And I think that would be a really, really cool way of creating a new system, like a new way of approaching Strive that I think a 2.0 like title update could garner. And I think that would be super, super awesome. Another aspect of Strive in particular that's always been criticized has actually been the Gatling options. And I think this is something that we could revisit as well. Because though the specific Gatling options that Strive has are very specific and needed for the balance of the game, I also think we can open it up a little bit to give players more options again, in a way that controls it a little bit, or controls that chaos a little bit, but still gives people a fresh look and a fresh way of interacting with the game. And specifically, I think letting punch and kick Gatling with each other, I think would go a long way of adding a lot more feel to the game, a lot more comfortable feel to the game, especially if you're coming from a different game. And with that, I think if you can cancel into a super from a special move, that also adds to the game. With what we just talked about in terms of conversion and abilities, I think that giving players more ways of canceling into things and just extending or making a little bit longer combos, I think would be really, really cool. And also opens up possibilities, right? More combo expression, more ways that you can route into things and even do things. This is going to have cascading effects, obviously, with the rest of the game, because like my first thought was like, people are going to go coast to coast like all the time, which is a problem in and of itself. I think like at that point you would maybe have to increase the amount of health that the wall has to account for it, or you would have to adjust the gravity system for combos to account for it. So there are things to consider. Like it's a multifaceted thing, not just the, oh, just turn it on. But I think what it would add to the game, how it would expand the game, and the options that it would give players would be super exciting and fun to do. At its base, this would affect the entire cast, so I think it would also make people reconsider and maybe want to re-engage with some characters now that they feel and can do completely different things than before. You've refreshed every single character by giving them brand new cancel options. So I think that would be something worth exploring. It would probably be a ton of work. You got to be honest about how much work that would cause, because of the balance of the game is just completely different once you start doing that. But I think if we're gonna go, Dream List 2.0 moniker, worth exploring. I want to see it. Now, something that could be a controversial take is I would actually want to see some actual cosmetics being added to the game. Now, this is a big one just because content has always been consistent-ish with Strive, but obviously in a very simple, straightforward way, right? You just got your pass, you got your characters, you maybe get some colors with the pass, and that's it. But I think they should expand more to give more customization options to these characters. Guilty Gear as a series, the characters are so well known and so iconic that being able to make them feel a little bit more like yours, or apply that little bit of customization, would go a long way of creating even more connection and even just a revenue stream for Arxis, honestly. I think at the time when Strive came out, this wasn't even in their mind, but now with their experience with like Grand Blue and things like that, I think they can probably see how much better of an option it is, even in a limited capacity. We know that their team is small, so it's not like I expect them to be able to do full, huge revamps of character skins compared to something like they do with Grand Blue, because Grand Blue even does that, but on a very slow process, right? It's not like characters get skins all the time. It's not like a standard free-to-play game. But I think if they even did weapon skins where like Souls, like Buster like actually changes up, Kai's sword is different, that things like that, the weapon skins, could it be a way of adding customization without them having to put in a ton of legwork to actually make it happen? But I think overall, just more customization options would be good for the players, and even, to be fair, would be good for Arxis as well. I'm not here to cover for Arxis and tell them like, hey, charge me for things, but I think it's one of those, it's a win-win scenario on both sides that I think players will just enjoy. Given how old Strive is and how much the fighting game landscape as a whole has changed since then, I think Arxis has an opportunity to also reassess how they release this game and how they make it available to people. And by that, I really think that it's time, especially with how old Strive is, that the base game is just free. I think giving out all of the base characters free to people to play the game would go a long way to not only modernize some of the game, but also get people to play a game that is that old. Even though Strive goes on sale constantly, it's not like the game is like super expensive to get. The DLC characters actually are, but the base game at this point, just give it out for free and let people play the game. to get them reinvigorated. This kind of connects with what I was talking about earlier about cosmetics, because then how do you make up those funds from Arxis's perspective from giving the base game out for free? I'm like, well, that's why you can do some cosmetics to try to help you out. But I think if you bundled the other seasonal characters, like seasons 1 through 4, into a new bundle so that people can buy that, they will do that too, because now you're telling them, here, you can have half of the available cast for free. You can pay for the other half if you want to, or a la carte it still. And I think that would be great. I think if they even did that bundle, if they gave you a discount for each season that you own, or for every individual 4 characters you have, that would also go a long way, because that way you're not overly pricing people out and acknowledging what they do own and what they've already paid for. So I think that would be a really good way of like kind of creating a modern version of it. It's almost like taking the Grand Blue approach, where they have a few characters that were free, and if you wanted the other characters, obviously you had to pay for the full game. Here it's a little bit more nuanced, because like the game is just this much older, but I think that same kind of model would really help to bring in a lot of players to Strive that I've probably heard about it for a long time, but maybe have never jumped their toes in, just because there's a million other games to play and also to buy. So having a free option there, I think, is huge for the community in and of itself, and just for onboarding as well. Now, to go back to hopelessly wishing, I want to see a new game mode. If there's something that I feel like fighting games have yet to explore to their fullest extent, it's about giving players multiple ways of playing the game. A lot of the times it's literally just ranked or unranked, and that's it. But I feel like fighting games can explore so many different game modes to play the game differently in different ways. When I think about like a shooter and all of the various modes you have to play that shooter, I don't understand why fighting games, which are primarily online games as well, can't do something like this. And so I would love to see a new game mode that's maybe less focused on the competitive aspect, but still gives you that fun enjoyment of just playing with the character and using their moves. In that same vein, I think that Team of 3, because of how much of work they put in there and how much attention it kind of needs a little bit, I think giving it another refresh and giving it another attempt might be an aspect that they can explore as well. The simplest answer for Team of 3 is honestly just make it a 1v1 mode where you can control your assistant to call them in. I think that would at least go a long way of making people interested in playing it, because one of the biggest problems and hurdles of it was the fact that you needed so many people to play it that it really shrunk the available amount of people that you had. I like the fact that there was a method of playing cooperatively in a fighting game. Like, that's really cool. That's obviously one of the main selling points of 2XKO, and Strive ended up doing it first in a way. But given how many people they added and how much it took and how much strain it honestly put on their servers to even make it work, when it actually worked, I think just even revamping it would go a long way, because then it gives people a new way of approaching the game, and having new ways of playing the game is always hella fun. All right, the last thing I'm going to mention is we do need a story update, because they've been hinting at the fact that there are story things happening still, that the lore of Guilty Gear will continue, but we gotta not do the in-engine videos anymore. It's not that like the story necessarily was bad. I think obviously the DLC story was the best one between the two, but I don't think it's as conducive on it. It did make me think, though, of how they're inputting this expanded arcade mode with the Lucy update, and how she's going to have like so much more happening supposedly in her arcade story mode, which makes me think, what are they going to do with that tech? Could that be where they're moving towards for new story content, as opposed to the old, like in-engine video system? If that's the case, I think that could be much more interesting. We'll have to see how the story update for Lucy actually ends up coming out, because it could equally suck, and we not want that either. But I think the fact that they're trying something new and they're building, I presume, more tech for that to make that possible. I mean, they have to make new tech for the fact that it's just longer, so they had to expand even what the arcade mode can hold. So now that they have some of that infrastructure, or even just some of that tech available, I would love to see them do that and create an interesting story update with the 2.0 launch to kind of continue the story along. We can kind of catch up after the anime, Dizzy being queen now, And with Unica running around, like there is things happening in the world that could be really, really interesting to see and where we go from there. Even with the characters that are coming out, consider the fact that as one of the speculations is we're getting Robo-Kai, which feels like all but guaranteed. But Robo-Kai, he was technically ahead. Venom was working to try to get his body. So this jump forward in the story, could it be that, yes, he collected as much money as he needed and built Robo-Kai his body? Unica could have helped in making that body, given that her knowledge of the future with tech. Hell, you can even interweave Lucy's knowledge of tech, that she had a hand in building Robo-Kai's body. All of that would actually completely make sense in how Guilty Gear works, that you could see the pieces like fitting together, that I would love to see what the story mode could do and what's the next chapter of Guilty Gear overall. All right, y'all, that's all I have for this wish list. There was actually a lot more here than I thought about, but I wanted to keep it at least a little bit condensed and not just go overly crazy with my brainstorming. I also wanted to get this video out faster because it was such an electric moment right now with what are the possibilities. And Lucy's coming out fairly soon anyway, so like there's going to be plenty to talk about. So I just wanted to take this moment to bottle up my excitement, throw it out there, and share with you all. Because if you guys are like me, you guys got through EVO and everything that was announced, and it's been a lot of fun to just remember and even reminisce already about everything that we got from EVO and all the news that are coming out of it. So have fun, continue exploring about what's happening, and I'll talk to you casuals later. See you.